His reaction to the firing of Fort Sumter is going to unleash the second round of secession. But let's talk about Lincoln's response first. Lincoln is going to call for 75,000 volunteers to put down the rebellion in the South. 75,000 men that are going to serve 3 months in uniform. Keep that in mind. We're talking, Fort Sumter is in April, and then they're supposed to be in uniform all the way for 3 months. So that's going to basically end in July. Well, keep that in mind as we go through these slides. But nonetheless, the call-up of these 75,000 volunteers is going to spark a second round of secession. States like Virginia, Arkansas, Tennessee, and North Carolina are going to secede from the Union as a result of Lincoln's reaction. Now, one person in particular is going to take that's going to take, at least folklore is going to tell us it takes him a long time to decide. It's going to be Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee is one of the most distinguished officers in the U.S. military at the time. Is going to be offered the command of this new army. He's going to basically have a gigantic promotion to be able to serve his country. And with the popular image is him walking behind the pillars of the front porch of his house. And his house was in Arlington, Virginia. In fact, Google search Robert E. Lee Arlington House, and you'll see it. But you'll also see something rather interesting, and I'll get to that in just a second. Well, anyway, so the story is that he's walking back and forth behind these pillars. If he was, if he could sweat blood, he probably would have. But nonetheless, he ultimately says that he cannot accept the promotion. He says that I cannot raise my hand against my birthplace, my home, my children. So he decides that he's going to resign his commission, and he's going to go join the Virginia militia and eventually the Confederate States of America. That's the legend. Now, one thing that's actually going to happen is that as a result of this betrayal of the United States, the federal government makes sure that Lee is never going to return to that house again. How does he do it? How do they do it? They start burying the war dead of the Civil War around his house. And that little core of war dead is going to turn into what we now know as Arlington National Cemetery. So if you ever Google search Arlington National Cemetery and you see pictures of it and there's this random house in there, that's Robert E. Lee's house. And he never returns to it. His wife does live there for quite some time, and she's well treated while living there, but nonetheless, they start burying people to make sure Lee understands of the mistake he had made, and a kind of a revenge against the man. But nonetheless, Robert E. Lee has a very convoluted way of going into the Confederate services. Now, that's the legend. Whether or not it's actually true is now up to debate. You can make a case that says that he actually was thinking about resigning all the whole time, if you look at his actions after he resigns. Another officer that's going to resign quickly is going to be Thomas J. Jackson. You know him as Stonewall Jackson. And Jackson's going to basically say, if Virginia stays in the Union, I stay in the Union. And guess what? Virginia leaves the Union, so Jackson goes, and he becomes part of the Confederate Army, and will eventually rise to be one of Lee's trusted lieutenants during the first few years of the war.